You're about to deal with forces you can't possibly comprehend.
Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and certified self-leadership trainer with the John Maxwell team, Dom Brightman. And this is the podcast where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. Now let's get on with the show. Today's episode is sponsored by the GoingNorthPodcast.com shop. And if you head over to the wonderful website, cop some merchandise, take a selfie with you rocking the gear, shoot it to yours truly, the host, Dom Brightman at gmail.com, and I will give you a shout out on the show as well, and heck, even tag you on social media as well. So feel free to check out some of the good old merch on GoingNorthPodcastShop.com. Now let's get on with some super special, awesome content. And today on the highlight reel, built for authors known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, is the Going North Podcast. We got another super special, awesome human today who could probably fit all three of those G's. Like, you could probably, like if glamorous was in the picture dictionary, today's guest photo would be in the freaking picture dictionary, because she stays fabulous, baby. That's right, indeed. And I got to thank my good buddy, Mr. Bananas Foster. Oh, wait, no, not Bananas Foster. Robert Foster. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's right. Fellow motivational speaker, storytelling coach, and podcast host, hooking me up with this super special, awesome human right here, folks. Let me tell you a bit about her, because she is a veteran, y'all. A wonderful veteran indeed. You know, we appreciate veterans on the Going North Podcast. And not only is she a veteran, she was actually a Navy combat veteran, baby, for the great country of the US of A. And she's also a business owner indeed. So veteran, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and #1 best-selling author. So let's give it up for Ms. J.S. herself, the wonderful, joyful, and sensational Janae Sergio. How you doing today, Janae?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the great introduction.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. Intro is usually the best part of the show before rabbit holes appear.
I'm ready for them.
That's right. They pop up out of nowhere.
I've had a lot of them in my life, so I'm ready. Let's do this.
You can say that again, sure. It's like, you see, folks will be like, you see your IG and they'll be like, man, this one was really gorgeous. Like, oh, darn, she's a mom and she's married. Darn, she's off the market. Oh, man, she must have the most perfect life ever. And then you read her book and it's like, oh, what the heck? How the heck are you still alive?
I wonder the same, actually. Especially as I was writing the book, I was like, how did I survive all this?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But yes, welcome to the business of immortality. Your first book, one and done, and more to come, I'm assuming. So what led you to finally become a published author?
I never actually had it in my goals to become an author. As I started to grow on social media and share my story, I started to realize that there was people out there who were relating to my story and also who were being helped and possibly saved by my story. And as I started to share more often, I thought, I really want to get the whole story out there and have the greatest impact possible. And so I sat down a few months ago. I just started writing, and I just started putting it all on paper and sharing it in a way that hopefully will inspire people and move people emotionally, whether they're stuck in their own life or they need to get out and really help those in the community. And so that's the impact that I'm hoping to have with my book, Perfectly Flawed.
Oh yeah, so you can say that again, indeed. Yeah, because some of the stories in there, especially, my goodness, like it's kind of hard to pick where to start with any of them, because like a lot of things have been brought to light. It's like just the craziness that still goes on in today's society, and heck, even sadly some of the stuff that happens to the ladies when they become service women in the wonderful military. So it's like, oh darn. But my goodness, like the military wasn't even in your realm of actual possibilities either. So became an author, became wonderful lady serving in the Navy. So what led to that?
To joining the Navy. So I had been at 16 years old, my mom dropped me off at a homeless shelter. And I spent 2.5 years surviving the streets of Hollywood, California, avoiding sex trafficking, avoiding attempts to lure me into sex trafficking, avoiding attempts to lure me into drug addiction, and really living in survival mode. In doing so, I wasn't able to really elevate myself out of that situation. There was systemic barriers to me being able to elevate myself out of being homeless as a teenager. And one day, one of my good friends came up to me and was like, I joined the Navy. And I'm like, the military? I had burgundy hair, I had long nails. The military was the last thing on my mind. But she invited me to have lunch with a recruiter, and he took me to Carl's Jr. and he bought me a big, juicy burger. And he convinced me that the military would be a great option for me to change my story. He told me the Navy specifically because you would always be next to the ocean, you'd be able to travel the world. This was during peacetime, so there was no concerns at the time of me being sent to war or combat. But I would be able to get those benefits of being able to pursue my higher education and really just become the person that I wanted to become. So I gave it a try. I took the risk, and I left on Halloween Day of 2000. Almost exactly a year before 9/11.
Wow, that's gotta be like looking back. It's like on one hand, it's like, oh, lucky, hooray, get to escape all the nonsense. At the other side of the end is like, oh crap, 9/11, darn. All right, well, time to turn on the patriotism to like 100 now.
Exactly. You make a good point about that too, because I didn't really feel patriotic. I mean, life had dealt me a really challenging experience. So for me, America wasn't the American dream wasn't possible as a child and as a teenager. And it wasn't until I joined the military that I realized it was. And so you're right. That's when patriotism dialed up really quickly for me.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, funny enough, they made me think about how you even joined the Navy. So, actually, then again, it's probably like multiple ways. But I was thinking, because I remember the Covenant House, for some strange reason, because you decided to join the Navy, they kicked you out of the program easily. But now it's like, I wonder if 9/11 would have happened, they would have not kicked you out as quick.
Yeah. And, I don't know that they kicked me out. At the time, I felt like maybe they had something against the military, or they had something against me being in the military at the time. But in hindsight, especially now that I work for the government, I feel like it was because of their program. And in order for them to continue to be funded, they needed people to complete the program. And the plans that I had taken were not aligned with me being able to complete the program. And so I was kind of holding up the spot for somebody who which would impact them being funded and being able to continue to help those in need. And so I took it personal. It made things a little bit more challenging for me at the time that they kicked me out, especially so abruptly. But I appreciate the work that they do. And all of those organizations really are what kept me alive and kept my head above water as a teenager. I don't know what I would have done without them. And so, I'm thankful to them. I just wish they had given me a little bit more grace time for my military transition.
Okay, well, when he put it that way, it kind of makes more sense that way. Because going to the store, it's like, damn, like domino after domino, like, can the chick catch a break?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it was tough. I mean, I had to go down. They picked me out. They said, pack your bags, you have to leave today because that's not part of our program. I had to go down and sleep on the floor in the lobby, and that's where the emergency people would come in, and it was not a safe spot for me. It was scary. I had nowhere else to go. I wish they had given me more time and grace. I hope that if they hear my story, they'll understand the impact of those actions, and that, maybe not to jump so quickly to push that person out. But at the same time, those programs did help me. And so I'm still grateful for that as well.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So, and speaking of magical programs, you got this wonderful creative mind, and you got this wonderful fashion business where you actually get to model your own clothes. So, my goodness, so what was probably the first sign of you discovering that you're an artsy person who loves to be fashionable?
When I was, I've always been artistic. And as a child, through my childhood trauma, I drew. And that was my escape. I would draw or I would read books and I would daydream. When I lived in Hollywood, I ended up actually getting a job on Melrose Boulevard and I worked in clothing stores. And it's a very eccentric style. It's not, like shopping mall clothing. It's very eccentric. A lot of celebrities shop there, especially for their shows. And so I worked in clothing stores. I loved the fashion. I loved everything about it. And that was my dream. I wanted to have my own shop one day. But like I said, the system was just working against me and there was no way for me to make that possible. So I joined the military. I served for 8 years in the military. I went on to have a very successful federal career, and I was also able to use my military benefits to earn my degree in business management. So all of the experience that I accumulated over the years lended towards me eventually being able to pursue my dream of finally opening a shop. And it wasn't an in-person shop, it was an online shop, but I'm still able to get the fashion out there and share my love for fashion with people and help women to feel empowered in what they're wearing and in their own skin. And so I have my online boutique. It's also called Perfectly Flawed. And I sell clothes ranging from swimwear to what I'm wearing now. And I love it. I love everything about it. And it's also just a beautiful community of people who wear my clothes. And so it's been an incredible pleasure. We've been open for 3 years now.
Woohoo! Hat trick, baby, 3 years. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. Will there ever be perfectly flawed greeting cards in the near future?
It's so interesting you mentioned that because I don't know that I brought that up in my book, but as a kid, my dream was to open a greeting card company. That was always my dream. And the reason was because I wanted to bring happiness to people. I wanted to bring joy. So it's interesting you say that. So yeah, I guess it might be, especially now that you bring it up, you might have just helped me manifest it. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, because I believe it was like when you were 15 going through all the nonsense. That was like one of your dreams at one point. It's like, oh, yeah. So greeting cards or the whole love bombs and greeting cards and things like that are like in nowadays and showing appreciation to people. Like it could be a nice touch or a nice little addition possibly to what
Yes.
you're already doing.
When I was living in the shelters, in the teen shelters, they had a contest and all of us were able to design a Christmas card. And I ended up actually winning the contest. And so my Christmas card was the card that they sold to raise funds for the shelter when I was 17 years old. And so I still have that card as kind of a memory. And, maybe one day that's going to be something I'll pursue as well.
Ah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Another story for another social media post in the future. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Well, as with everything, with all the rainbows, there was some rain that led to the rainbows themselves. So, my goodness, if I'm not mistaken, you actually had to deal with, I guess, injustice twice because two idiots decided to be assholes. If I'm not mistaken, right?
You're correct. Mhm. So I had my first experience with sexual assault was when I was 16 years old, and it was actually my first sexual experience as well. I had run away from home that I think it was that day just to try and escape the abuse that I was enduring at home. And I ended up being assaulted by a classmate. I went back home to report it to my mom, like any teen, even though I had been running from the abuse. Every child, the first thing that you do when you experience something traumatic is you want your mommy. And so I went back to my mom to try to get help. And she said that I had now become a statistic. And that's when she actually took me to the homeless shelter and dropped me off. And after she dropped me off, the charges were dropped against him. The second experience that I had with sexual assault came just a few years later in my first few months in the military. We had been invited on an MWR trip. And I joined the military and I thought, oh, I've got a new family. And I really let my guard down, surprisingly, because I had been through so much and I didn't trust many people in all that I had been through. But at this point, I let my guard down, and the military really teaches you to rely on your brothers and sisters and to trust them. And I did that. I was taken out on an MWR trip. And during that trip, we were supposed to have hotel rooms that were two to a room, two females to a room, two males to a room, typical protocol. But the chaperones wanted to save money, and they put us like 5 to a room. It was intermingled. And at the end of the night, the door was left open and someone came inside. One of my fellow shipmates came inside the room while I was sleeping and sexually assaulted me. That was the second time. I immediately reported it to the chaperone, but because everybody had been drinking, he said that if we had called the cops, we would all get kicked out of the military. I had nowhere else to go. I would have to go back to the streets. And so I stayed silent that night. And when we got back to the schoolhouse, one of my classmates actually reported it. And we went through the process. It was about 2 years before we finally went to court martial. And he was also found not guilty because I didn't report it that night. That was one of the things that kind of worked against me. So both times it happened, and both times the person got away with it.
That's definitely painful. That's definitely painful, and I'm sure there's still some pain carrying that to this day. So any advice from your standpoint for folks who may be listening, they may have gone through it themselves, or they know close relatives who've been through sexual assault? Any words of wisdom that you want to share for those who may be going through that?
The most important thing is to give yourself grace in the fact that it happened and the way that you have handled it. It could vary in the way that a victim of sexual assault will respond. Some may report it, some may get angry, some may stay quiet forever. All of those are acceptable responses and normal responses. And so give yourself grace, take it one day at a time. The trauma will live with you forever. And it's important just to learn how to live with your trauma and for me, honestly, the way that I really live with it is by helping others. When I help others, I feel a little piece of me heals each time. And so that's kind of the best advice I can give. If you get angry, don't let anyone tell you how you're supposed to respond to something like that.
Good deal indeed. Yeah, because it's really sad, because ever since starting this show, just been learning more about like people's backstories. It's kind of interesting how it's like at the surface you may think, oh yeah, they're probably doing great, they have a great life or everything, but no, they actually went through some tough crap back in the day. Some are still going through it, and some of it's even generational. Like even in your case, it's been generational trauma, and you're breaking those chains as well. So it's really been great to hear folks really overcome and help others and use their pain to have more power. Now, granted, the pain's still going to be there, I can definitely imagine, especially the first one when the mom was lying about it. On top of that, I almost threw the book across the freaking room, like, what the hell? You're all freaking parent.
I couldn't believe it. And as I was writing it, I was getting angry. As I was writing the book, I had to relive that trauma. And a lot of it I had suppressed over the years just to keep going, right? You push it down, you keep going. And I think that's how I got as far as I did. But as I was writing it, my 15-year-old is sleeping in the room next to me. And I'm thinking, I could never do that to her. I could never. And I'm so extremely protective of my children. I was getting angry. Like, how could you not have been protective of your child in that way? And so just the way that it was handled all around was a situation that hindered my ability to trust other people. And it really lended to what the moral of my story is be your own hero, because I realized that nobody was coming to save me. Not even the people I trusted the most were going to come save me. I had to step up and be my own hero.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. And not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear uniforms and super special, awesome, flashy dresses, y'all. That's right indeed. Be your own freaking hero, y'all. So my goodness, so speaking of being your own hero, I'm putting this story out to the world, putting this book out to the world. What was your process like for the book? As some folks may be listening and aspiring to write their own books, but they too may have gone through some really painful stuff, and it could be hard to really relive all of that. So what helped you to finally get to the darn finish line to publish this book?
I was surprised I made it. As you read in my book, and as you've heard of most of my story, I take leaps, I take risks, huge risks, and most of them have paid off, and most of them I felt like I could do this. But with the book, that was one of the few risks that I took that I was like, I'm done. I'm giving this up. This wasn't the right idea for me. And not because I didn't want to get my story out there, but because of how challenging it really was. So in the beginning of the book, I actually just kind of trauma dumped. At first, when I was writing it, it was just trauma dump. And I was getting angry, and I was starting to get a little bit depressed. And I was like, how could all of these things have happened? And the more you put it on paper, the more it becomes, you start to realize other things that happened that you had really suppressed over the years. So I was trauma dumping. And then I took some time to really reflect on everything that I had put down on paper, and to reflect on my own story. And my life is not a series of trauma dumping and a victim mindset and throwing it out there for everybody else to suffer. I wanted my book to have value to those who read it. And I wanted them to understand that, yes, I went through these things, but this is the mindset I used in order to overcome those things. This is the mindset I kept all along the way. And with that mindset, you too can overcome hardship and trauma and challenging situations, and then turn around and use all of that pain to help others. And so I ripped up the entire book and I just rewrote it. I rewrote the whole thing. But this time I only incorporated some stories that highlighted what I was going through at that time in my life. I didn't put it all out there. There's a lot that I left out of the book. But I put some stories that highlighted those periods of life that I had gone through. And then I shared my mindset, and I shared how I overcame them. And then at the end, I was able to share really how I'm using that story today to help others. And in doing so, it has been incredibly healing. So I would recommend it. But I would say to anybody who's going to put their story, especially if it does have a lot of trauma, on paper, to give yourself more than 6 months to do so, because it's going to be a long process and it's going to be difficult, and you need to have time to process your emotions and to heal along the way.
Wow. After reading the book from cover to cover, I'm like, man, so there's more? What the hell?
Yes.
Especially the childhood parts. It's like, wait a second, what?
Yeah. I actually left some of the even more traumatic stuff out, just because I didn't want to, it wasn't a book meant for revenge or for people to seek those in my life out. And so there were some stories that I left out to avoid evoking that type of emotion out of the reader.
Very honorable indeed, and also partly scary, because it's like, for the folks listening, definitely pick up this book. Perfectly Flawed, y'all. I'm telling you indeed. When you read this book, and she mentioned, hey, this was the stuff that made it to the book. There's even more bad stuff that didn't even make it to the book. So it's like, oh God, if this is the stuff that made it to the book, it's like, oh God, what the heck did make it to the book? It's like, ah, damn.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. I'm glad I left some of it out, though. I can live with myself because of it.
That's good. That's great to hear. That's definitely great to hear, indeed. So my goodness, so what keeps you going and moving and shaking and all the wonderful stuff that you're doing today? Because you still get to be radiant in spite of all the nonsense that happened in the past.
Yes. Last week, my story went viral on mainstream media, and I received a tweet. And it simply said, "Your story saved me today." My purpose of writing the book was, if I could help just one person, I will have fulfilled my purpose. And that one tweet was everything that I needed to see. And every time I receive feedback from others that my story has helped them, inspired them in some way, I heal just a little more. And not only do I heal, but I feel more motivated to get out and share my story and help those who need to hear it. I don't know who needs to hear it. And I don't think some people even know they need to hear it. But I want to get out and share it as much as possible so that we can help as many people. This world, I would say a third of Americans right now are dissatisfied with their lives. That's 100 million people. And if we can get out there and share the message that you can be your own hero and you can take control and change your own life, I think we can have a pretty good impact on this world.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's beautiful, y'all. That's what I'm talking about indeed. Hero swag indeed. Hero swag indeed. Saving lives, baby. That's right, saving lives indeed.
Yes, sir.
So a part of all this wonderful media stuff that is all taking place at the moment with this wonderful tour you're on, promoting the book, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're in these interviews?
No, I think that the questions are usually pretty on point, and I especially appreciate the unique questions. Every time we do an interview, something unique comes up, and I get an opportunity to share a new part of my story. And you asked about the Hallmark dream of greeting cards. And I didn't remember that I wrote that in the book. And so the fact that you brought that up almost sparked a new excitement in me and something that, yeah, I do need to push forward with that dream. So every interview, you guys have such an art of pulling something new out. And so I appreciate that.
Woohoo! Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. Gotta love the art indeed. So speaking of art, well then again, I guess food can be art. Maybe. Anyways, so if this wonderful book, Perfectly Flawed, was a food, what would it be and why?
If it was a food, what would it be? Man, that's hard. Apple cider vinegar because it's healing. I can't think of a food. maybe I'm hungry and want all the food right now, but I would say that's so bad. I'm gonna be embarrassed of that answer later.
Well, there are benefits to apple cider vinegar. I mean, hey, it tastes rough, but hey, it's good for your body.
I think that really does sum up the book. So
it's actually a darn good answer, actually. Yeah, the first ever on the show. It's like, oh, apple cider vinegar. Like, you know what? I wouldn't even consider that a possibility, but hey, it's all good.
Everyone's running out to buy apple cider vinegar after this.
No, should I keep it in the house? That mess is good. That mess is good indeed. This is great indeed. Wakes you up in the morning. Wakes you up in the morning.
Yes.
Indeed. That's right. You'll get the hashtag stay woke.
I'm like, I brought myself to tears with that one.
So my goodness, coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and oh man. Anyways, almost forgot what I was about to say. Anyway, so if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're in 2022, what advice would you give to yourself?
If I was 25 again and I was in 2022, I would start where I am now. I would start pursuing my dreams. I would, throw out the imposter syndrome and throw out all of the disbelief that I had in myself and just start going forward. I wish I had that 15 years that I needed to get to where I am today. I'd be a lot further. So, let those inhibitions go and just start now where you are.
Woohoo! That's right indeed. Start now, y'all. That's right indeed. So I put on them Nikes. If you can't afford Nikes, just say, hey, just do it. That's right indeed.
Yes.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So for those who need to keep in contact with you and keep up with your journey of all the wonderful stuff that you're doing and that you're going to be doing in the future, because I already know this is only the beginning for you. What's the best way for folks to keep in contact with you, Janae?
You can find me across all platforms at Janae_perfectly flawed. And you can find my book at perfectlyflawedbook.com. I'm very active on social media and I share a lot about my story. So I look forward to getting to know everyone.
Woohoo! That's right indeed. That's right indeed, y'all. That's right. Follow the wonderful Janae indeed. She stays active. Inspirational stuff. Even some good old TikTok nonsense indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. But hey, TikTok be good for people though. It'd be good for people. That's right indeed. So check her out like a library book and buy some copies of her marvelous book. And be on the lookout for the next one indeed, because I'm pretty sure you got another one cooking, don't you?
Definitely. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. And will this book be on audio, or at least the current one?
I currently have it on Kindle and paperback print. I am working out the logistics now. I'm self-published, so I am working out the logistics to do an audio recording.
There you go. Take a year off and do it yourself. That way you can unmask the pain and then have the band-aids ready. That's right. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So any parting words before we close up shop, Janae?
I think that the main thing I would like to get out there as far as my message is no one is coming to save you. And that doesn't mean that people don't want to help you. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be willing to help other people. But everyone is kind of going through their own thing. And so if you sit around and you wait for someone to come save you, you're going to develop the victim mindset and you're going to get stuck. Take control of your life today and be your own hero. And also, thank you for having me.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast. To do something that'll take yourself to the next level, and for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can be inspired to be their best.